Here we go, another Winky Wednesday podcast on Locked On 49ers, talking about the running back injuries. Why are they happening seemingly more often to the 49ers than other teams around the league? Is it the way Kyle Shanahan coaches his offense? The NFC playoff picture where the Niners are, closing the book on the New Orleans Saints shutout, and looking ahead to the Dolphins and beyond on this episode of Locked On 49ers.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker with you as always at BD Peacock at Eric_Crocker. It's where one of the questions will come from on today's show. Hit us up on Twitter there. You can also leave a comment on YouTube. Make sure you're subscribed up, hitting the thumbs up, the bell notifications, and all of that. Thanks again for making Locked On 49ers your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And since it is Wednesday, you know what that means, a little Winky Wednesday after taking the holiday off for Mr. Nicholas Winkler.
Nicholas Winkler, come on down.
Action News 8 Sports with Nick Winkler.
Can't believe it.
What's happening, Wink? How are you, man? Did you have a good holiday?
I did. Yeah, I ate way too much, obviously, and got to watch a lot of great football, and so it was wonderful.
Some great football. Nice little shutout victory for the San Francisco 49ers. Wink, how impressive is that defense right now? Do you think it's the best defense in the league? Like, I'm kind of going back and forth on this, and I've actually gotten some questions on Twitter and in the YouTube comments because people are sort of, it's almost like, it's like, oh man, this is the best defense in the league. The 49ers, best defense the 49ers have ever had. And then you'll get somebody who says, but it was the Saints and it was the Rams and it was the Cardinals. And last time they saw a good team on offense, the Kansas City Chiefs rolled up 40 points on them. So which is it, Wink? Is this the best defense in the league, or are they just beating up on bad opponents?
I mean, they're all professionals, right? I mean, these guys are out there trying to earn their paychecks and trying to do a good job on offense. Like, it doesn't matter. You're still going up against Alvin Kamara, right? And you caused him to fumble twice. Like, this is a great defense. And they're not even fully healthy. They don't even have Eric Armstead back yet. I mean, Javon Kinlaw's still not playing. Like, this is a team that lost Mosley. This is a team that has stepped up. And we saw them in their dark times earlier this season, right? When they were extremely banged up again, like that Atlanta Falcons loss. But they've really come around, and they really just, they bend. And we saw it time and time again against the Saints where they just weren't giving up that touchdown. They weren't giving up that score. And that's impressive. It doesn't matter who you're playing in the NFL. You shut a team out, that's impressive.
It does feel, it's weird, I guess, because you look at the stats and it's like number one points defense, number one against the pass, number one against the run. You see all these number one third down. Like there's like a list of them where they are just the top dogs. And even then when you watch them, like, does it feel like Bowman, Willis, Arlen Smith, Justin Smith, Deshaun Goldson, Dante Whitner? Like, does it feel like you're watching that like tenacious of a defense?
I mean, you watch Fred Warner flying around the field. You got Hufanga flying around the field. Nick Bosa's getting a sack almost every game. Like, this is a good football team, especially on defensive side. Like, they got a lot of playmakers. You see Ward constantly breaking up passes. And, I mean, I don't think they're quite to that level yet. Like, okay,
I was waiting for the answer because you weren't really answering it.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, they're getting close, right? They're inching up.
You were dancing around the question a little bit. What do you think, Peacock?
It's hard because you need to see the full picture, because those other teams, we saw the final, they got all the way to the Super Bowl or whatever. And the league is actually, even since, Willis and Bowman, the league has changed a lot. Like Dante Whitner would get fined, suspended. He'd get his entire career taken away. He would get shipped off to another country. He would be put in prison for the hit he put on Pierre Thomas, right, in the Saints game back in the day. You just can't do what those defenses used to be able to do physically and beat up on people. So the new rules, I think it looks different. It doesn't feel as dominating, but they're still flying around and they're shutting teams out. They're not scoring on them. So it's different. I would say no, that it's still not at that level, but I just don't think you can play at that level. Like, what if just for one game, all of a sudden nowadays the rules were, okay, no personal fouls for this game. let's go. You know what I mean? What
People
would that
would
look
get
like?
hurt.
And how different would that be? Because that's kind of how it already was back in the day. Like you had Dante Whitner was like, let's celebrate this dude. He's flexing. That's one of the greatest hits in 49ers history. That would be the worst play, right?
He'd get ejected immediately.
Yeah. Well, Hufunga's hit was, I mean, he flew in there and hit
the ball. He didn't hit the player. But by the way, so I think that's one of the really key things I've seen from the 49ers the last 2 weeks. It was on the Cardinals defense the week before, though. Remember when they just like didn't want to tackle George Kittle? They're like, yeah, we're kind of done with this game. Right. I got that vibe from Alvin Kamara in this game. He was not having a good time. It was 1.9 yards per carry, and fumbling the ball, and you could just see it in his face. He's like, this game sucks right now. And so they are they're. I think was it Steve Young talking about snatching soul, digging graves? Like that's what the 49ers are doing right now. So you got to give that team credit because they're making teams quit mid-game, which you don't see a lot anymore.
And that's just it, is what they're doing in the second half of games. Like, that's what's so impressive is, they're coming out early. Maybe they're giving up some first half points and this and that. But the way they're playing in the second half, where they're really just like, no, you're not going to score on us. It doesn't matter what you do. Doesn't matter where you go with the football. We're not going to let you in the end zone. It's fantastic to watch.
I asked this question to Croc earlier on in the week. Wink, do you see a weakness on the 49ers defense or maybe on the team? Like, the trade deadline's over. Guys like Ndamukong Suh have signed. Odell Beckham, I'd be surprised if the 49ers need or want him, or he would want to pick the 49ers when all said and done. More likely going to the NFC East, Giants or Cowboys. He might be positioning those teams against each other because of what's going on. Or we'll take a look and talk about those teams with our NFC playoff picture a little bit later. As the team is constructed, where is this team? Like, is this better than 2019? Better than last year's team? Is it worse? Is there something you see? It was like, well, I'm worried about this going forward that could keep the 49ers from hoisting that Lombardi.
Yeah, for me, I mean, I didn't hear Croc's response before, but I'm going to guess maybe it's the same, that it's opposite Charvarius Ward on the defensive backfield, right? I mean, it's Lenoir. I feel like he's drawing a lot of penalties out there too. Also, he's just given up a lot of yards. Maybe it's not just him. Maybe it's a scheme thing. But I feel like right now the secondary is their weakness, and it's not Ward. I feel like Ward's doing a great job, and I feel like the safeties are doing a fantastic job as well. I feel like it's that other cornerback for the 49ers right now where they're struggling.
I think Croc actually kind of pointed to the nickel and maybe Jimmy Ward not being exactly.
Okay. I can see that
on that. And look, if you are and I would look at it this way: if you're an opposing offensive coordinator and you going against 49ers, who are you going to pick on? You have to circle Diamador Lenoir, right? And say, look, we're going to target this guy a lot. And so I think that's part of it. He's going to see a ton of targets, so he's going to give up probably more than the other guys. But I think he's been pretty up to the challenge and done as well as you would have expected too. So while it might be the weakness, I would say D-tackle depth, get Eric Armstead back. I think the 49ers have done a good job of protecting the other guys. And so even the players that offensive coordinators are circling say we're going to attack these guys, it hasn't really hurt the 49ers, right, Croc?
Right, and that's my thing, right? Again, go through the numbers, and it's like number one versus the run, number one versus the pass, number one scoring defense. So it's like there has to be a weak link, and I guess if there is a weak link, it's probably your third or fourth corner on the roster coming in and having to start. He'd be the quote unquote weakest link, but I think all in all, considering the situation, I think he's playing well enough to make it to where the 49ers pass coverage is not something you go into the game thinking like, oh man, they just can't cover anybody, right? Like, when's the last time you said that? And that was kind of the thing, especially last season when you had young guys like Lenoir, then you had the old man Norman, and you had Ambry Thomas, and everybody's like, oh, just throw the ball on their corners. This year, you don't hear that, even though we do know if there is a weakest link, it possibly is the guy that was not the projected starter to go into the season.
Yeah, and I would say the defensive line, the defensive tackles is sort of the same story where the 49ers have done a pretty good job of making up for the lack of Eric Armstead. And you hope he comes back, and I'm sure that would make the 49ers a lot better. But guys like T.Y. McGill, plucking him off the
stepping up
off of the Minnesota Vikings roster, and he looked good against 49ers in the preseason. I'm sure that was one of the reasons why oh man, this guy looks good. And if we have an opportunity to steal him off the practice squad, let's do it. And they did. And he made a couple plays. And Charles Muniz has been playing awesome, and he's more of a bigger end moving in, but that was sort of the Eric Armstead thing, right? Too. So they've made do, and even the weaknesses have been they've been able to cover him up. So I think that's where you probably look at D'Amico Ryans and say, man, this guy's done a hell of a job, which is, one of the reasons why he might end up getting a head coaching job next year. But they do have a lot of star players around those guys, which really helps. So, you can put Bosa, give him more responsibilities. You can give Fred Warner more responsibilities. You can let Charvarius Ward cover the other team's best guy and those types of things. So the 49ers are in a really good spot. And to be honest with you, but the way Garoppolo has played recently, I think this team might be top to bottom, and the playmakers better than 2019, better than 2021. I think so.
Yes, top to bottom. And I think it more so because just the offense is even more explosive on paper. Now, they haven't had the consistency of what we saw or some of the offensive explosions that you did see in 2019. So I'm waiting to see if a game like, and I just talked about that tonight. I'm like, man, you play against a team like maybe the Philadelphia Eagles, you might have to score a bunch of points. And then what happens? Philadelphia Eagles go out and score like 40 points on Sunday Night Football. So when you play against those teams, sometimes your defense isn't always going to have his fastball. Offense is going to have to pick up the slack. And I'm waiting to see the 49ers, who have scored more as of late. And I'm not worried about the 13-point game at all. But when push comes to shove, you're going to have to get a little bit better play from the offense. And there is something different. I was talking to my guy, Greg Pinelli, about it. And we were talking about the 49ers defense and some of the things that the Saints were doing. Why was the 49ers offense limited? Were they playing a little bit more guys in the box, taking away the middle of the field, making the 49ers do some things that they ideally don't want to do? And that's typically something you see in the playoffs when they start to scheme against the 49ers and they're all in on stopping a certain thing that the 49ers do well. And it starts to make it a little bit harder to throw the ball and have that type of success. So this is going to be an ongoing thing that we see. And again, more so because the 49ers expectations are not just to be good in the regular season or just to make the playoffs. Right now, it is one, to win the division, and then you got to go win the Super Bowl because that's what the expectations have been all along.
Next, we've had questions. Why so many injuries to 49ers running backs? And we're going to take a peek at the NFC playoff picture as well and what that schedule looks like for the 49ers, where this team will be going into, hopefully, the playoffs in 2023. Next. Turo is the world's largest car-sharing marketplace. With Turo, you can book any car you want, wherever you want it, from a community of local hosts. For example, if you live in Arkansas and maybe you want a Charger with a Hemi, you might find one of those blacked out. You'll know it's all tinted up. If Eric Crocker wants to be a host on Turo and put his car out there, maybe you can find it. Maybe you can find an SUV or a minivan to take your family on a road trip. Maybe you are in Monterey, California, and you want to find a car that is, I'm trying to think of what Winkler drives right now. A Volkswagen Beetle. No, that's not what he drives. He drives a pickup. A pickup? What do you drive? I forget.
Yeah, Chevy Silverado.
There you go. Chevy Silverado. Monterey County, maybe. If Nick Winkler was a host on Turo, you can find any car for any situation, any budget. You're just trying to get an economy car from point A to point B. You want a luxury car, a classic car, a roll up for a special event. You can find that as well. Maybe an electric vehicle. See if that fits your everyday life. Many Turo hosts can even deliver the car right to you. Croc won't do that, though. Every trip is backed by liability insurance. Terms, conditions, and exclusions apply. Forget those boring rental cars and find your drive at Turo.com. Today's episode is brought to you in part by Audible. Audible is releasing a slate of new football podcasts that we're sure you're going to love. Find the newest Block Forever now, wherever you get your podcast. Block Forever is a brand new podcast from former NFL All-Pro offensive lineman Ryan Khalil and Audible. Khalil takes the conversation about football to the next level, gives football fans an insider's look through the eyes of some of the greatest players and personalities of all time. Khalil sits down with star players like 49ers running back Christian McCaffrey, who talks about his love-hate relationship with fantasy football, talks with coaches, former pros across the league to get real about what happens on the field and especially behind the scenes, inside the locker room, during team meetings, back at the hotel, maybe even at the club. New episodes of Block Forever will be recorded and released every Thursday night ahead of Thursday Night Football, and it is available for free on Audible or wherever you get your podcasts. Catch the full Block Forever series, available anywhere you get your pods, available now on Audible. Get in the game. All right, guys, I want to go to Twitter user Sean, who asked the question of us, Breida, Mostert, Mitchell, just to name a few. Does Shanahan wear out his running backs, or do the 49ers just seem to pick fragile ones? Croc, let's start with you. What do you think? Are the Niners just picking fragile running backs? Is there some way that Kyle Shanahan coaches running backs that gets them hurt more often?
I think it feels like that, but shoot, man, you look at, and maybe this might be, go towards who they're picking, but I just feel like running backs just get injured. Look at Derrick Henry. Nobody carries the ball more than Derrick Henry, and he's been hurt one time. He's taking massive shots. He's taking shots to the lower leg. Is he being able to, withstand those hits because he's just larger? I don't think that's really the case. I just think he just somehow doesn't get hurt. But you look at some of these other backs, whether it's the 49er backs, I feel like Dalvin Cook, I always have to check, is Dalvin Cook playing? Because it feels like he's always kind of banged up and something's going on. I love the way he plays, but somehow he's missing games. I feel like you've seen it with all of these guys. And we talked about a class, what was it, 2014? No, 17, 18?
I think it's 2017, right? Yeah, with McCaffrey and Fournette, Dalvin Cook, Eckler, all those guys.
Yeah, Eckler. Well, a lot of those guys have missed a lot of games. So they've scored a bunch of touchdowns. They have been very productive. But I bet if you look at how many games they've played, they've missed a lot as well. So I think some of it just has to do with being a running back and what comes along with that, which is why I don't know why anybody would want to. When you look at guys like Deebo Samuel and how he's built like a running back. So it's like, hey, he is just like you, but he plays a receiver position where there's more longevity. You're going to make a lot more money. Why would you ever want to play running back?
Yeah, it's high-speed collisions. You're in more car accidents every week than you are at any other position. Like, you think about 20 carries and the pounding you take against bigger people than a wide receiver gets maybe 10 targets, getting brought down by DBs instead. I mean, it's just a different position, and the 49ers aren't the only team.
How fast do they age too? Right?
Oh, yeah.
How fast? McCaffrey, it feels like, how old has it felt like Christian McCaffrey is? And then you look at it, it's like, well, he's 26 years old.
Yeah.
Like, that is young for a receiver, but running back is like, hey, he's got to get toed that line. He's getting old. He's getting up there in age.
Yeah.
Well, it's like you said, Peacock. It's like they're running into big guys, not the bigger guys. They're running into the biggest guys, right? They're running straight into the line. So they're running these 320, 330, 350 guys. Like, that's going to take its toll on anyone. And anyone who's played fantasy football knows all about having the handcuff, right, for your starting running back, just in case, or you get somebody else's handcuff. Because running backs just miss time. And that goes into your whole don't take a running back early in the draft thing, right, Peacock? I mean, they don't have a long shelf life, and they get injured very, very often.
The injury, even if you're Derrick Henry, the injury rate's 100%. He was going to get hurt, and that's last year. It happened. Like, that's the fact of it when it comes to running backs. And you don't draft handcuffs at quarterback or tight end or wide receiver, right? Even though you got a star player there, you draft them running back because the running backs get hurt, and that's just the way it is. And that's why their value is down overall. It's why they're getting paid less than they ever were. It's why they're getting drafted lower than they ever have. It's just the 49ers aren't the only team. It does seem like, though, even though running backs get hurt a lot, it does feel like the 49ers still get hurt a little bit more at a lot of positions too. And so there was the comments from Eric Crocker. Like, maybe it's practice stuff. There's something to it because it continues to happen for the 49ers. But when it comes to running backs, they're going to get hurt because it's just the nature of the position.
Yeah,
I hate the term like injury prone because I feel like there's some luck with it. But you do look at some guys, right? Like, not me, for instance, and I didn't have this long, illustrious NFL career at all. But, just throughout my time playing, from a kid to the last game I ever played, the first time I ever got hurt and missed a game was the very last game I played at 28 years old. That was the first time I missed a game in my entire life. So
at 28, your career's over as a running back anyway by then.
Right. But you look at a guy like Jason Verrett, and he's hurt all the time. Yeah. So why does he get hurt a lot more playing the same position than I ever did? And to the extent, right? I mean, we're talking about Achilles, we're talking about ACLs multiple times, each one. I mean, it's not something that just typically happens to guys, but so is there just some luck involved with some of it outside of the running back position?
Yeah, there's a ton of luck. You have that one major injury that could be just someone plows into the side of your leg. Nothing you do about it. That's going to snap. And then
that's Elijah Mitchell.
Right. And that triggers other injuries. And then, now you're a half step slower. And then, it's a downhill spiral. And it's like, it's the Trey Lance stuff. Like, Trey Lance got hurt because he got sandwiched between a 340-pound defensive tackle and a middle linebacker. You know what I mean? Like, he didn't get hurt getting tackled by a 198-pound DB. Eric Crocker never got hurt until he's 28 because he never tackled anybody. You know what I mean? So it's like there's reasons why guys don't.
Oh man! Hey, I don't know about you guys.
I made a lot of business decisions. That's for sure.
That's smart. That's smart. You're like, wait, nope.
Hey, Arena League.
Nah, you want to play special teams track?
Nah.
Listen, in the Arena League, the tight end was also a tackle. So say like, matter of fact, one of my guys is still playing. Ty Nsekhe. He's still like playing in the NFL. He's been a backup. I remember back then, right? This is my rookie year in the Arena League, 2012. I said, hey man, you gonna try to get back to the NFL? Because I'm young. I'm just getting into the game. He said, oh no, man, I'm too old for that. I'm too old. I can't get back in the NFL. Dude been in the NFL ever since. But I mentioned him because guys like him in the Arena League, they play is like 3 down linemen, and one of them is like a tight end. So they throw screens to those guys, and who would have to come up and tackle them? Eric Crocker. And you can't hide. Like you can't hide from it. You can't act like you're getting blocked. You can't. There's nowhere to go. There's no out of bounds. So they got to run into you. I mean, that was tough. I probably
does that happen?
My shoulder still hurts.
Act like you're getting blocked.
Is that what happens sometimes? Because you see that sometimes with the wide receiver and a DB. It's like almost like having an arrangement. It's like, hey, I'm not going to block you too hard, but don't try to get out of this block too hard either.
I think there are guys that make business decisions.
All right, fair enough.
When a big guy like that, you have to try to find the right angle. Now, there's some guys that just don't care and they're hella crazy, and they'll run into anyone. I think there's like maybe 1 or 2 of those guys on every team. I think Jimmy Ward's like that, and he's like one of the smaller guys. Obviously, Fred Warner, he's definitely like that. 49ers have a bunch of those guys. I think they purposely draft guys like that, right? They drafted Keller Witherspoon. They didn't really like his mentality, right? And Keller Witherspoon, the right angle, he'll go make a tackle. Like, he'll go make it. If he can kind of get you at the right angle and he knows, like, he is not going to take, like, the brunt of that contact, he'll go in there. But let it be somebody that's straight line at him, and it's like, oh, damn.
My
start
calf,
to think, how am I gonna take a little bit off of this one right here?
Oh, that's fantastic. All right. I want to talk a little bit about the NFC playoff picture, just a zoomed out view of the 49ers right now this season, where they're at, how important this week is, how important some games are that are coming up for the Niners next. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain, right, that you have access to the best qualified candidates that are available for the position that you're hiring for. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. I've been a hiring manager before, and sometimes it is very difficult. You have a small selection of people you want to interview. Sometimes you sit across from a person at a table for 5 minutes. You realize I do not want to work with this person every single day. And sometimes all of the candidates feel that way. With LinkedIn Jobs, you can find a much bigger selection of candidates and then whittle that down with the candidates with just the right skills and experience, so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire with simple tools like screening questions. All you do is you add your job to your purple hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile, and that spreads the word to this massive network of potential hirees that you are hiring. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. So the 49ers right now are at the #3 seed in the NFC. The Niners are in a very good spot. They are 7-4. They're not going to catch the Philadelphia Eagles, who are 10-1. They're 2 games back from the 2 seed where the Minnesota Vikings are, but 2 seed, 3 seed, not a big deal unless you're getting that bye. But you want to host a home game to start the playoffs, right? And so that's where the 49ers are right now. But one thing that really shocked me, and shout out to my friend Joshua who sent me this. He's a Cowboys fan. That's something he's had to live with his whole life. I don't know why he made that decision back in the day. He had no reason to do that living in Central Valley, California, but he did. And he pointed out to me that the NFC East not only would, if the season ended today, and it's still very likely that this happens, even though the season we know doesn't end today, that the NFC East would have 4 teams that would all make it. The entire division would make it into the playoffs right now. 5, 6, 7 seed are the Cowboys, the Giants, and the Washington Commanders. And the Seahawks went from, by the way, the Seahawks went from 3 seed and leading the NFC West. They went on a bye week, came back, lost a game, and are now 8 seed and wouldn't even be in the playoffs at 6-5 if the season ended today. So I still think, Washington, Seattle, New York Giants, I don't think there's a big difference between those teams. Seattle might still get in. They need to beat the 49ers in a couple weeks. I think that's a big game when we look ahead at the schedule. But here's what's crazy that Joshua pointed out to me that I didn't know. If it stays like this, Eagles have a bye, then the 5, 6, 7 seeds would all be away teams playing home teams in the first round of the playoffs, the 2, 3, 4 seeds. If all those away teams won, the second round of the playoffs in the NFC could still be just the entire NFC East, and that's all that is left in the playoffs. Isn't that crazy?
That's wild.
It's not going to happen, but
it's one of those
I don't
things.
think the Giants make it.
Well, look,
I don't think so either.
Okay, how about this? So Niners are 3 seed right now. They would play the 6 seed in the first round. Right now would be the New York Giants. Would you rather play the New York Giants, the Washington Commanders, or the Seattle Seahawks in the first round of the playoffs? It would be a home game for the 49ers.
Probably
New York
Giants.
Giants.
A tough one. Yeah,
I'd rather
they
play
still
New
have
York.
Saquon though, right? I mean, they still have that huge playmaker, but they don't have any receivers there in New York. Defenses, whatever. Yeah, probably the Giants.
49ers have the number 1 run defense in the league.
Yeah, you're right. You don't want to play Washington though. I mean, just something about that team right now. They're playing so well behind Heineke. Like I wouldn't want to play that team early on.
They're
And the
kinda
Seahawks.
gritty, huh?
Yeah, exactly. And then the Seahawks is a division opponent, and that's never fun in the playoffs.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to play the Seahawks. So yeah, I would say Giants or Commanders is who you're hoping is that 6, 7 seed for you if you're the 49ers.
Although I do feel like with the 49ers defense, they will get after Taylor Heineke. And he does some weird stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Like if you just
He does.
actually watch the games,
Yeah.
he's like poor man's Jimmy Garoppolo.
Oh, yeah, they're not winning because of him, but he does.
Right.
That's actually really good because he does
He's
have
a leader,
that
though.
that leadery qualities. The
Mhm,
thing that you can't put your finger on. Why are they winning? Right. That
Right.
Jimmy Garoppolo has. Yeah, I like that. Poor man's Jimmy Garoppolo is Taylor Heineke. Not as handsome, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Throw some weird passes. Like he'll throw some bad interceptions. Like, but he's just
Mm-hmm.
not as good as Jimmy Garoppolo.
Right. With better legs, that's about it.
So and
More
looking ahead at
mobility.
the schedule with the 49ers right now, I just don't see a lot that impedes them from keeping that 3 seed. The whole NFC South is just so bad that I don't think their record would overtake the Niners, even if the Niners still won the division, that they would be the 4 seed. So I think most of what's going on in the NFC is pretty locked in because after the Seahawks, nobody else is even over 500, and so a lot of these teams are 4-win teams. So the 49ers are in such a good place right now. We talked about how good the team is, we feel, maybe as good or better than 2019 or 2021 when they went to the NFC Championship game one time and then won it the other time, and we're in the Super Bowl. Got the Miami Dolphins coming up. Then you're in the NFC with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Tom Brady coming to town. Then go on the road, short week to Seattle, which is really tough. My opinion, the most important game on the schedule left and the most difficult because it's in Seattle on a short week. When you're the away team on Thursday, that's usually bad news for most teams. I mean, it's just a tough ask. Then you got Washington. Then you got at Las Vegas on January 1st, and then the Arizona Cardinals, who are a mess to finish up the season in Week 18. For playoff seeding, the NFC teams matter the most, and the NFC West teams matter even more than that. The 49ers, basically, if you beat Seattle, it is going to be very difficult to not win the West. You would own the tiebreakers on the entire division, and then the next tiebreakers NFC schedule for those seedings. So the Miami game coming up and the Las Vegas game are the 2 least important for the 49ers to win. We have talked about this, but correct me if I'm wrong, Wink, wouldn't you rather beat the Raiders and have those bragging rights? Like that one feels so like the game coming up is the biggest like barometer game. Like where are the 49ers? Number 2 offense in the league against the best defense in the league. Are the 49ers last time they saw a good defense, they lost 44-23 to the Kansas City Chiefs, right? So it's important for that reason. But as far as the record goes and bragging rights with your friends and all of those things, the next game against Miami is the least important. Do you agree, Wink?
Yeah, but it's probably going to be the toughest. I mean, their toughest opponent, I think, is going to be this weekend against Miami. But like you said, man, there's something about beating the Raiders as a 49er fan. I know they're not in California anymore. They're not in Oakland. They're not even in Los Angeles. But you still have all your buddies. Around here, you're either a Niner fan or Raider fan. So, you got to be able to put that. But you can't look past them either. I mean, this is a good football team. Yeah, they haven't won a lot of games, but the games they've lost really close. They've given up some 17-point leads. Like, we saw how they just won over the weekend with Josh Jacobs just going crazy. I mean, that's a game you can't look past for sure. I know the 49ers won't look past any of these games. They'll have them locked in. They'll have them ready to go. But, I mean, honestly, the biggest game, you said it, is going to be Seattle. Second biggest is probably going to be that Arizona game at the end of the year because it is a division opponent. And it's a game you're probably going to have to win to seal up the NFC West there at the end. Hopefully not. Hopefully they've done it before that. But, that if they don't, obviously, that's the biggest.
You might want to lose to the Commanders just to make sure the Seahawks don't make the playoffs so you can play the Commanders in the playoffs.
Boom.
And Croc, I want to ask you this because we talked about how the 49ers, they've beaten up on some bad opponents with their defenses recently. But the same has kind of been the case with this offense for the Dolphins. They started the season out hot, and then, the Tua injury stuff was weird. And then the last 4 or 5 games, they've put up 30 points on the Lions, put up 35 points on the Bears, put up 39 points on the Browns, put up 30 points on the Texans. Like, the Bears, Lions, and Texans might be the 3 worst teams in the league, right? And the Browns aren't playing great ball either. So is this a situation where maybe the 49ers defense has looked so amazing the last few weeks since the Kansas City game because of subpar opponents, but so has the Miami Dolphins offense?
There's definitely a case of that because watching them early on, I think they had a lot more weird moments as opposed to just this offense that looks unstoppable. Now, throughout this time, though, guys have gotten off. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, they've gotten theirs. I do think one thing that has helped them, maybe it's because of the opponents, but they are running the ball a lot better now, especially after the Wilson trade, as opposed to earlier in the season where they really didn't have much of a run game. So I don't know if that's been the difference with this offensive explosion, or is it more so of the quality of opponents?
Yeah, I think what you're saying too is early on they were trying to chase Edmonds, right? They were like, "This is going to be the guy, Chase Edmonds, and Raheem Mostert will be the our number 2 running back," and they just were like, "This isn't working. We got to go full with Mostert," and then they know they can't just give Mostert every carry. So that Jeff Wilson trade for them, I think, was one of their biggest moves, that they made obviously here during the season. That's huge for them. He's been fantastic for the Dolphins.
Also banged up last week. Raheem Mostert's been banged up. I think he wasn't even, I think he was out.
He didn't play.
Didn't play. So, yeah. Ex-49ers running
winnable
backs.
Football game.
Hurt. Go figure. No, but yeah, so it's going to be interesting. Yeah, and that's why I don't want to put too much on this game as like, oh, the 49ers lose this game to the Dolphins. Are they terrible? Like, are they not as good as we thought they were? We just talked about how they're as good as 2019 or better than 2021. But if they lose to the Dolphins, it's like, okay, you're losing to the good teams now. You lost to some bad teams early in the season. Maybe is this team not as good? So it is a bit of a barometer game, but I really feel good about this game. Don't freak out, I would say. And it should be a lot of fun. I like the trash talk between the two teams. But, man, it is different when you're playing against a quarterback who is the most accurate quarterback in the league, according to Tyreek Hill, throwing to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. That's different. Players haven't seen that all year.
Mike McDaniel, too. Mike McDaniel. He said the same thing, too.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Mike McDaniel factor. That's the other thing, too. So, like, fans will freak out if the Niners lose this game. Bunch of cast-off 49ers, ex-49ers coaches. Mike McDaniel was really the brains in the operation. Kyle Shanahan wasn't, right? If the 49ers don't win this game, can't actually play against good offenses, So, we'll see how it plays out. But all the the articles can kind of be pre-written. You know what I mean? For this game, I feel like. Whereas the real
you have your win and your loss.
Yeah. The real meat. Yeah. It's like best defense ever, or oh my gosh, Mike McDaniel was really the true brains of the operation. 49ers can't win a Super Bowl this year. They can't beat good teams in the playoffs or whatever. But I think the real meat of the season, the real important part of the season is coming up after the Dolphins, in my opinion.
Yep.
It's going to be fun though. I can't wait for this week. It's going to be a great game. This is a popcorn game for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wink's wish watch 4 punts, 2 touchbacks, keeping up with his 50% touchbacks. Yeah, only 18 return yards. Not his best game, but
had the one funky one that only went to like the 50-yard line.
Yeah, wasn't great, but that was when he was in the end zone. That was a tough one. He didn't have the full yardage to
That's
kick.
true. Yeah, that's true.
I'm going to defend him, right? You come out Wishnowski.
Well, of course, I'm just saying. Yeah, it looked funky. It came off weird.
It did.
Hey, Croc, the 49ers have crazy injuries. Like maybe there's some kind of COVID hits the 49ers DB room. They call you up, sign you off the street. You got to cover Tyreek Hill. What do you do? What kind of take? Like,
have a safety over top.
Safeties are out
with him at the line.
You give him space, or you try to not let him off.
The more you try to get hands on at the line of scrimmage, the more you're liable to get whooped off the ball, and then you're just chasing. So you just kind of want to be a little bit more comfortable. If you can get hands on, great. Try to funnel them inside to where you possibly have some help, and trail under a little bit and have a safety over the top. Like that's the way I would go about
it. Who was the defensive coordinator for the Browns? Greg Williams?
The bounty gate guy.
Single
He's like 45 yards off the line. That's Croc. He's not even in the screen in the broadcast view.
I think if you
That's
get
crazy.
called up
I've never
like
seen
that,
anything
Croc,
like that.
you got to call Dante Whitner too. See if he'll be back there. Be that safety protecting you.
Yeah.
You hit somebody one good time. You never know.
That's right.
Fucking hitting her back there. I do miss seeing Dante. I do miss a little bit of the element of the enforcers in football. A little bit. Not a lot.
Tired of all the.
I don't like the cheap shots because there was some bad stuff like the Vontaze Burfict stuff. Like you can miss me with that. That's not cool. It's not interesting. But having someone back there like Whitner, Ronnie Lott, it's like I don't want to go over the middle right now. Like
the Sean Goldson. Like there was.
Goldson.
Niners have had a few.
Willis,
I feel like it's at your own risk. You want to live life dangerously, then have at it.
I like it.
That's on you. This is football.
Right. If you want to live life dangerously and not subscribe to Locked On 49ers, you can do that. But I don't think it's smart.
Good luck.
You got to smash that subscribe button on all of your favorite podcast platforms. Tell a friend about Locked On 49ers. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. Make sure you're checking out everything else the network has to offer. Locked On Sports Today, covering everything going on in the league every day, or everything going on in the entire sports world every day. We've got the Peacock and Williamson NFL show. Me and former NFL scout Matt Williamson covering the entire league daily on the network. Croc doing Locked On NFL Draft daily. Wink, thanks so much for jumping on another Winky Wednesday.
Hey, my pleasure, guys.
Croc and I back tomorrow right here, Locked On 49ers.
See ya.